keep caste. It is what you were born into in your caste, and you can't change it in your life, and you just have to behave yourself and keep that caste. Okay, that's the Hindu social structure. So when they are born into a particular caste, and the government says, okay, we will save this many seats at the university for people from this caste. Okay, if they become a Christian, then they don't count anymore in that caste. So they don't want to lose that chance. So when they talk to the government officer, they don't tell them, I'm a Christian. What is the result of that? The result is that when the census is taken and they say, how many people in India are Christian? What's the Christian percentage of the population? You get this persistent figure every 10 years when they take the census. It's always around 3%, 4%, like that. 2, 3, 4, 5% is Christian. And some people are saying it's quite a bit higher than that because some people are not admitting to the government that they're Christian because of this reason I've just given you. And then, then of course in India, whenever people want to make a claim that it's a bit bigger, they always inflate and exaggerate that claim. Like if you're going to ask, what's the population of your city? Now, when we go to Madras, or Chennai, and they would always say it's about 6 million people in Chennai. But the people of Chennai, they will say, oh, we got about 10 million people in our city. So it's like that. You know, everybody inflates what the figures are. It's part of boasting about our city or this or that. And likewise, sometimes when the Christians talk about what population of the country Christians are, sometimes instead of making a reasonable increase because of some people not admitting their faith, you know, on the census, but they take advantage to inflate it further and give a higher figure still that's not really, you know, perhaps justified. So sometimes, therefore, it's hard to know how many people in the country are Christians. You know, it's probably a little higher than the official figure, but how much higher it is than that we don't know, obviously. To know that, we would have to go and talk to every single individual, and they would have to be sure that we were not going to tell their reply to somebody else, you know, who could hurt them by denying them a job or denying them a spot in college or something like that. So, and that would be a huge thing to. Now, here's another very good report to encourage you. One was about the size of the church. Another one I want to give you is that I went to India last winter, and there was another group that wanted me to speak at their, what they call General Assembly, what we would call a General Conference, but it's the same thing. It's their annual gathering. So they asked me to go and speak at that. So I went there and I spoke up once on one of the services at that. And but I saw a revival unlike anything I've ever seen before. And I should say, unlike I've seen anything recently. I saw this when I was a teenager, I saw it when I was in my 20s. But, you know, what can happen in your life can also happen in a church, and or can happen in a church organization. It's possible for a person to be on fire for God and really wanting to live for the Lord, and it's possible for them to backslide and get more concerned about material things, get more concerned about their possessions, and get more concerned about their status in the world, and they start thinking about that, and then they lose their fervor, you know, for the Lord, and then they become lukewarm in that sense. So that can happen to a person, it can happen to a congregation, it can happen to a whole organization. And of course it has happened, if you go through church history, 2,000 years of church history, it has happened before many, many times. So, but when I went there this last winter, I saw, I was in a General Assembly. One time there was about, some of the meetings on the second or third day, there were about 4,000 to 6,000 people in that building. The reason I can't give it more specific than that is because, see, they build, it's kind of open to everything. They're building it as inexpensively as they can. It's a General Assembly hall that they use only at these times. It's got these steel poles, and it's got sheet metal roofing, and there's just this big hull of that, okay? And wooden benches inside. And then when that is too small, when the crowd is overflowing that, they have, the way it's built is they can just open up the sides. Basically, the side walls, you know, that they can just lift the windows and remove parts of the lower part of the wall, but especially the windows, and because it gets hot in there, and they get air, you know, so many people in there, and they have the way the roof is designed that air can move through it, and so you start seeing that the building is full, and you start seeing that the windows, through the windows and the way on the sides and the back, there are people out there, and you don't know how many people are out there. You know that you got about capacity of 4,000 in this building, but how many more are outside there, and especially when the meeting goes into the night and it's dark out there and you can't see how many more people are outside the building looking through the windows, and they just put more benches out there, and then of course they, when they're not using the building, they just stack up all of these benches inside the place. So I saw that size of a crowd, and then the way they worship is very frequently in Mizoram. But I found out something when I was there this time. I had always thought that these people just dance as part of their culture. But I was thinking that it was kind of like North American Indians, Native Americans, you know, a fireplace in the middle and dance around the fire. And I thought that the fire was gone, and they were using dance to worship Jesus Christ. But I was told this last time that that dance was not native, indigenous to their culture originally. They didn't, before they became Christians, before they became Pentecostal, they didn't dance. And this became part of their worship as they came to apostolic faith, and they started dancing. And I've heard my grandpa talk about how there was one, at first when they were dancing, there was some of the guys, there was one guy that my grandpa nicknamed Crazy Charlie. I mean, he said that because when they would dance, that Crazy Charlie always, they didn't know. Some Mizos often have these very, very long names. They couldn't pronounce them. Very, very long names. So you call him Crazy Charlie, but he was always trying to dance over by the ladies every time they would go around. So my grandma, so then some of the senior ladies, they saw what he was up to. So some of the senior ladies in the group, they would dance and sidle in between him and the young lady he was trying to dance next to, you know, so, and keep him on the straight and narrow. But for a while, my grandpa had them separate into this ladies' circle and men's circle because of guys like that. And then when they learned to behave themselves basically in the dancing circle, then they could go back together and do it all in one big circle. Now, but there are many kinds of beats, okay? They have one big drum. Big means it can be, 3 feet in diameter. Wow. And it sits on a stand. And there's a deep beat, deep sound. And then there's a smaller one, and it's one that they beat at twice the speed. So every one beat on the big drum is 2 beats on the small drum. So dum 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 dum. And but the beats change very much. And as you listen to the music, you will see, because there's all kinds of different types of. Some of their dancing is more like running as they go around, and some of it is more like a simple 2-step, and it changes very much with the kind of beat that's being done. When you listen to what they're saying, you will hear one of 3 things usually. Sometimes it's just a hymn. You hear them all singing. The words are always different, like a hymn, lots of lyrics, okay? And everybody's singing together. Now, their voices, their language is tonal, like some other Southeast Asian languages. Brother Billy Cole used to talk about the Thai language, about how you could say the word cow, but you could say it 10 different tones, and it meant 10 different things, often which are not related to each other at all. And it was high tone, medium tone, low tone, high rising, low, medium rising, low rising, high falling, medium falling, low falling, and then the 10th one was a medium one that had a hiccup and it would rise and fall. Okay, so that was 10 different tones with the same syllable, meaning some of them were nouns, some of them were verbs, some of them were adjectives, some of them were different conjunctions or tones of word endings on other words. So it was a tone of language. Now, when you have a tone of language like that, people hear those tones as little babies, right? Their ear gets tuned to slight difference in tone, even when they're that is how they learn the language. And so those people usually make very good music. Now, every culture has people that make very good music. But you're talking about congregations that sing in harmony at times, because everybody's got this beautiful sound, you know, that's a beautiful sensitivity to the music. Oh, it's gorgeous, it's beautiful, it's wonderful. So anyway, sometimes they're singing like that. They're just singing a hymn. Okay. And you can tell, even though it's not your language, you can tell it's a hymn. And then sometimes you will see that they begin to all sing the same word. And this often happens not as a deliberate choice, but maybe they've sung a hymn and they're feeling the presence of the Spirit and everything, and then somebody starts beating the drum and they start moving. Some of the people start coming from their seats back into the middle, and it's a dancing circle, and they're not dancing yet, they're standing there and they're singing together, and then they begin to move into this Holy Spirit, and then you will hear that they're all singing the same words. And then you ask, what is that word? Sometimes it's a word in their language. More frequently, it's in tongues.
Wow.
And they're singing the same thing in tongues. Now, just like here, okay, just like here, you know that there are people who fake speaking in tongues in the States, okay? There are people who pretend that sometimes it's earnestness. They really want to learn how to, they really want to receive the Holy Ghost, and they hear somebody praying for them, talking in tongues, and they say what that person said, and inspired by the Holy Ghost, you know, they're just repeating what the other person said. But that's a little bit more innocent, because they're wanting to receive the Holy Ghost, and they're so eager. Then there are some people who are deliberately faking it, you know, and so you will have that everywhere, because it's human nature that some people would like that. But I'm talking about as whole. I'm talking about you have this whole big congregation, and when you sit there and you say that there's 4,000 to 6,000 people here, and about 3,000 of them are in that circle. It grows and grows and grows until you've got 3,000 people dancing and moving so in this immense circle. And sometimes singing a hymn, but sometimes singing in tongues together.
Wow. And
that is very, very impressive. And that's something that has come through their musicality, but also just through... part of it is that they're very musical people, but part of it is also that they're tribal. Their identity is in the group. And whereas in America we are very individualistic, our identity is our individual identity. And so there's this tendency as tribal to group together in a little bit more than we do. And so when you see them singing in tongues like that. Another time I saw, because it was a general conference, and they have a PA system. Most churches don't have PA. But this is a general conference, so they have this. And you would see a whole lot of people dancing around. And you would hear, and they're not singing, they're dancing only. And you hear one voice coming over the PA, and one man is singing. And it turns out that he's usually one of the two drummers. Often it's the guy with the smaller drum. And he's standing there and singing it. And so I thought it was an extended special song. So then I asked about, what is that? And it turned out that, I said, we don't know what he's singing. He's singing in tongues. He's not singing in our language. So now here, however, it's not one word being repeated. He's singing just like you would sing a regular song, like a hymn. It's full sentences, full lyrics and everything. And he's singing a full song, all in tongues. and beating the drum. And then, but this is, they don't know the words, you see. This time it's not one word being sung over and over again. And this time it's